So good evening, awesome coaches. It is such a pleasure. I am your host for the evening. My name is Priya Sharma Sheikh. I am a leadership and life transformation coach with a PCC accreditation. I am also a part of the ICF Mumbai board, heading the communications vertical, and that's why you must be getting most of the communication from me. And I am also part of the learning management team. And this webinar has been put together with that fantastic team. What I would also like to say at this point is that even though we are such a small team, we always manage to try and give the best possible webinars and learning experiences to all of you. Here I'd also like to say that we recently had a managing committee meeting over this last weekend. In the wake of that, what's telling me is there's so much exciting stuff coming out for all our members at the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. And we are hoping that we'll be able to give you more value for the membership that you hold along with us. So it is my pleasure, of course, to welcome you to this webinar on behalf of the Learning Management team, which has a focus today on why and how coaching boosts and the success of tech companies. So our objective and Jean's objective, our speaker for the day, is to learn about the impact of coaching on the world's leading tech companies. So our speaker for the day is Francois. I hope I got that right. I am
100%.
not a very good French speaker. He's a global executive coach and the chairman of the global board of the International Coach Federation in 2019. He will be, of course, our guest speaker, and as a recognized expert in the leadership and space and a former senior executive, Jean will share unique insights from his firsthand experience in his thought-provoking and experiential webinar today, this evening with us. I have a little piece of personal info on Jean here. He is actually an orchestra conductor and wanted to be one as a profession when he was a young man. And that, of course, didn't happen clearly, as we can see. He's now a coach in the space that we all also belong to. I'm going to also say a few hygiene factors here, but before I go there, I also want to say that Jean has, the experience to coach CEOs and CXOs and board members worldwide on several topics, including leadership. And he's also a longtime member of ICF Chapter Singapore, the Charter Chapter there, and is dedicated to the growth of the coaching profession, and he's advocated in numerous corporate audiences. Without any more further delay, can I request our dear speaker, Jean-Francois Cousin, to please take it from here. Take it away, Jean.
Thank you very much. Priya, namaste to you all.
On behalf of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a special pleasure to be with you today because I have a lot of admiration to all you do at ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, and also because coincidentally, our global board of directors for ICF held its very first board meeting of the year in your beautiful city of Mumbai.
Yes, and I was there for that. It was a pleasure.
And you were there for that, right? And some of you were there for that as well. And I remember some of the names I can see and I saw earlier on. And so that's a double reason to be happy to be with you. So thanks for making your time today and to me to make it worth your while. And so the subject I've proposed for today is what is so important in the leadership DNA of the Silicon Valley's most admired tech companies, and then how it unleashes collective intelligence and boosts their success. So I'm going to talk with you about this, and you will see that many of the slides may be used by you later on when you have a conversation with your clients about the power of coaching. And my intent is that you use anything that you find helpful in this presentation later on in your practice in service of your clients. I will send the slide deck in PDF format to Priya and the organizing team right after our conversation today. So I will present for about 45, 50 minutes, perhaps a bit more, and then we'll have a conversation. And by all means, feel free to bring up any question that are on your mind, and in particular, those that are important and not necessarily related to the topic. In fact, because as the chairman of the global board of ICF this year, I'm here to serve you, not just about this knowledge transfer, but to serve you as fellow members of our beloved ICF community. All right, so let's go ahead and imagine we are in the Silicon Valley, right? That's where we are on the West Coast in the US, in California, near San Francisco, and there we can see many busy people. In fact, and we can have a sense that their world, as is yours and mine, more and more, is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And you recognize the acronym VUCA that has become quite well known over the last few years, right? Interestingly, when I was searching on Google about 3-4 years ago, VUCA, that picture I put on your screen is the one that was at the top of the search page. Now, recently, for this presentation, I have researched the same VUCA acronym again, and the pictures that came up on the top of Google search that day is that one. You can probably appreciate that in the course of just a couple of years, the picture of complexity has become kind of scarier, yeah? And so how can this little guy, which is kind of us, right, in the middle of the road, find the best way forward alone in that jungle of dilemmas and complexities and ever accelerating change? The answer is probably he can't. He can't alone figure out the best way forward. The truth is that in that VUCA world of ours, no leader alone is smart enough anymore to figure out by himself or herself the best way forward. What needs to happen is the purpose of the talk basically today. And the first question is, what kind of leadership do organizations need to thrive in that VUCA world? And because that is a relatively complex topic, as we do in coaching when we embrace a conversation about a complex topic, we relax, we breathe, and perhaps we resort to the use of metaphor. So the metaphor I have chosen for you today is in line with my failed ambition of becoming an orchestra conductor, actually. So we're going to listen to some music by two orchestras directed by two very different orchestra conductors. So number one we will look at first is called Riccardo Muti. Number two is called Herbert von Karajan. Now, the thing is, one of these two guys became very rich and famous, and the other guy got fired by his orchestra. And it has to do with, obviously, their level of effectiveness in leadership. And I'm going to play 15 seconds of how they direct orchestras. First number one, then number two. And I will invite you to guess which one got fired, which one got rich and famous after you consider how they direct their orchestras. Ready, steady, go with number one.
There's no sound of the orchestra. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to. No problem.
Just observe and imagine beautiful music, because both produce beautiful music. That's number 2 coming up. So with number 2, you see a different angle. And I invite you to check the eyes of the musician and of the conductor. Are they open or not? Probably you can see actually they are closed. Okay. And the 15 seconds are elapsed for each. I apologize that you could not hear the music. When we played it earlier on in our 10 minutes preparation for today's, it was interesting. Priya, you could hear it back then, right? But now cannot. That's technology. Sometimes it doesn't work, yeah? So anyway, what was important was really to look at the style, the body language, if you will. As coaches, you are expert, we are expert in this, yeah? And decide on that basis who got fired and who got rich and famous. So now I invite you to move your mouse around the screen to find the chat box, and perhaps you can find it when you scroll the mouse towards the top of the screen by clicking on the More button and then on the chat, okay? And my invitation is you say just which one got fired. So for example, say if you think 1 is fired, write 1. And then and if you think 2 got fired, write 2. Interesting. We've got diverse opinions at this stage. And a majority, though, for 1 got fired. Well, in this particular case, the majority is right. Number 1 got fired. It was not that the music was not beautiful. The music was beautiful, right? But it was to do with his leadership. Actually, number 1 received a letter signed by not only his 100 musicians, but all the employees of the opera in Milano, Italy. And the letter was just made of 4 sentences. Dear maestro, you are a great conductor. Please resign. We don't like to be treated like robots. And in Italy, with trade unions, when you get such a letter, then you understand it's the end, right? And you'd better move forward to another country, which is what he did, yeah? Now, number 2, in comparison, became rich and famous, very rich and very famous in a line of work where nobody gets rich except him, actually. He got that private jet, he got a yacht, a castle, many luxury cars, a palace. I mean, the guy got super rich and the only one ever to have gotten rich. And it's quite interesting because when he started his career, he was even more directive and strong in micromanagement, basically, as than number 1. However, one thing changed his life, and that's the day when he learned to jump on a horse. He had been taken lessons to ride a horse for a few weeks, and then came the day where he had to learn how to jump with the horse over obstacles. And he was terrified because, you know, horses are heavy animals, like 600 to 700 kilograms. So if you fall under the horse, it's not the best day of your life, yeah? And so he was so terrified that he was kind of paralyzed and could not really move at all on the back of the horse. Now, the horse had his routine of walking and then trotting, aligning himself with the obstacle and then running faster and faster all the way to the obstacle. And so imagine that happening. Would you believe that the horse jumped over the obstacle with the guy kind of paralyzed, immobile on his back, or did the horse kind of broke down, slow down at the last moment? Now, what happened is the horse jumped, and that was a haha moment for our conductor. He thought, wow, even I do nothing, the horse jumps, and beautifully. And why? And that's because the horse is born to jump. He loves to jump. That's what he does. He runs and he jumps, right? When he is having a good time. And then he thought, wow, what about my musicians? Aren't they born to be artists, to create beauty with their instruments together? Isn't that what they do? And what if I would, this afternoon, when I meet them at the rehearsal, also do nothing, like this morning on the back of the horse? Would they also create beauty all by themselves, as the horse did a superb jump? Would they do superb music? He was curious. So he went to the rehearsal that afternoon, and he kind of signaled his musicians to start the symphony they were rehearsing, yeah? And they did. And then he just retrieved himself from engaging them in any directive manner, just being with them, being present to them, right? But letting them do their thing, just to see. And so what he heard was actually full of mistakes, because it was a totally new exercise for musicians. They were used to be directed, yeah? But the potential for beauty was way higher than when he was micromanaging them. And so he saw that. He saw the potential by directing less and leading in a more empowering way to attain much more beauty. And so that was life-changing. From that moment onward, his job as the orchestra conductor became to empower his people to play together at their very best, to tell the story together. And that is why you could see them closing their eyes, right? And him too, because they were all intently listening to their passion and to the passion of others and to the music of others, right? They were all like one, totally focused on playing together the very best, yeah? And so then he did an amazing career, which again made him reach beyond any imagination for that type of work. And then he lived very old until kind of 92 years of age, right? And I want to show you his very last concert next. Perhaps you will not hear the music. You can imagine it's beautiful, but there again, it's about the body language. So there you will see him very, very old and actually also very, very sick, which is why it was his last concert. And because he was a #1 superstar of the world of classical music, and it was announced at his last concert, all the specialized journalists from around the world flew over to Austria, where he was giving his last concert, to attend the concert and be ready to report the next morning in the media around the world. And this is a part of what they saw. That's the singer. And then #2 is coming. That's him. You can see he's aged a lot. So you could see he could only move his hands basically like this, right? That's all he could do, which means practically he could do nothing. Now, next day, in the media, the newspapers around the world at that time, like 30 years ago, there was an article everywhere from different journalists about the concert. And what was striking was that every journalist, with his or her unique style and unique words, was conveying the very same message. The message was, the music last night we heard at the last concert of Herbert von Karajan was so beautiful and unheard of that it could not come from this earth. It had to come from somewhere above. Yeah, all of them. And to me, that is a magnificent proof of the ultimate leader, the one that after he's not there anymore, has his or her people fully empowered and doing absolutely great job all by themselves without any hint. It's the best type of legacy for a leader. So that was my metaphorical way to propose a first answer to the first question. Which kind of leadership do organizations need to thrive in a VUCA world? And in many ways, playing classical music is kind of a VUCA. And it's definitely unpredictable, right? What the performance of the orchestra is going to be. The answer I would derive from the metaphor is that to thrive in a VUCA world, leaders must nurture the diversity, the inclusion, and the collaboration and agility that unleash collective intelligence. And the collective intelligence in the metaphor is that collective ability and unspoken communication of musicians as they produce great music. And that also reflects that they are all included in this, and as diverse as they are, from violins to flutes, from clarinet to trombones, all together with collaboration and agility, they unleash great music, right? Now, you may say, hey, it's all good, but that's just one example. And that's why I thought in our world where there is so much admiration on the world's tech companies that are that are succeeding big time. The next question I'm bringing up is, which kind of leadership is being nurtured by the world's most admired tech companies? And then, of course, with this will come as a sequel, which one of their good practices can we apply? So to select a few of the world's most admired companies and kind of study them with you today, I've referred to, you know, the yearly edition of Fortune magazine, the edition that is devoted to the world's most admired companies. And then they have, as you know, pages and pages of ranking. And then the top ranked companies are here. Now, don't even try to read this, right? Because it's on the next slide here. And there you've got the top 11 of them, dating back from 2018. Now, I've just checked this year around, it's still the same ranking, in fact. Apple comes first, Amazon comes second, Alphabet, which is Google, you know, the parent company of Google, comes third. And I've had a look at 1 and 3. I've also looked at Microsoft, which is 7 down the list, and then at Netflix, 11 on the list, because it's such an iconic company. And so I'm going to show you excerpts from their leadership guidelines, and perhaps you will be interested to share that later on with some of your clients if you want to do a workshop about leadership. Yeah, I hope it's useful anyhow. And I'll start with Apple, of course, at the top of the list. And then, you know, the CEO of Apple was Steve Jobs until 15 years ago. Now, for the last 15 years, it's Tim Cook. Tim Cook was chosen by Steve Jobs to take over the heavy duty of CEO from him. And you surely know, while Steve Jobs was famous for his extreme micromanagement, Tim Cook is, on the contrary, famous for his very large empowerment. And Steve Jobs chose him, which is, I think, such a tribute to the intelligence of Steve Jobs, to figure out that for Apple to continue to thrive after its first 15 years, a new type of leadership was required, right? So it's probably one of the ultimate great things Steve Jobs did. Now, how does Tim Cook, what does Tim Cook value in leadership? Number one, take risks. Now, of course, right, if we are an entrepreneur, we don't go anywhere without any risks. That's kind of a given. Now, what comes next may surprise you. 2, focus and listen attentively to those you speak with. Number 3, trust others around you. 4, diversity is important. 5, be humble. 6, admit when you are wrong, which is pretty much along the line of being humble, and kind of reinforces that. At the bottom of this slide and many more upcoming slides, you will see the source of the data I share with you, so that when you receive the PDF, you can dive in more if you are interested by one slide or another, and deepen the topic. Yeah. Now, you may be quite stricken, as I am, to see Tim Cook defining what matters most in leadership in that very way, right? Because to us, all of these items I highlighted in blue really evoke our work as coaches, right? We do listen and focus attentively to those who we speak with, our clients, right? We trust them unconditionally as the expert, as resourceful, as creative, as whole, as the ICF recognizes. We value their uniqueness, their diversity, right? We are humble. More than that, we are even vulnerable, which means we say when we don't know, we say sorry when we do something that's not helpful. We say we need help when we're lost in the conversation and we don't know where to go next, right? And so basically, Tim Cook is capturing in the core of leadership quite essential characteristics of our work as coaches, right? Now, let's go to Google. Google CEO is called, well, former CEO is called Eric Schmidt, and he was the CEO of Google from the very start, almost 2 years into the adventure. And when he started, Google was nothing, just a back of the garage little meaningless thing, right? And he saw the potential. And then many years later, so he helped big time Google to become a worldwide brand and famously successful company. He was asked by a journalist which best advice he ever received. I'm going to play the video of the interview, and I'm going to summarize, in case you cannot hear the sound, what he's saying to the journalist, right? And again, the question of the journalist is, what is the best advice you ever got? Oh, sorry, let me...
Years I've received so many different kinds of advice. I've received different kinds of one that comes to mind is to have a coach.
My best advice I've received is to have a
John
coach.
Doerr said, "You need a coach," and I said, "Well, I don't need a coach. I'm
At the beginning, he didn't
why would I need a coach?
because he was successful.
No, you need a coach. Everybody needs a coach."
His boss insisted.
So Bill Cambell became my coach and has served Google very well.
He needed a coach.
Every famous athlete,
every famous
performer,
every famous performer
has somebody who's a coach.
Has somebody who is a
somebody
coach.
who can watch what they're doing.
Somebody who can watch what you're doing.
No, we can hear him. We can hear him. So.
See themselves as others see them. Coach really.
Right. Yeah, and I put the link on YouTube so that you can watch the video and perhaps use it by yourself, right? And it's very interesting. I'll tell you more about that gentleman at the end of the presentation this evening, right? But Eric Schmidt, who is now retired, he's chairman emeritus of Alphabet, the mother company of Google, is now a most ardent advocate of coaching. Yeah. And so then let's look inside Google at the behaviors that are required from managers, in fact. And there you've got them. As you can see, number one behavior required from manager is be a good coach. Now, of course, Google is full of brilliant engineers, and the survey they did for 2-3 years to find out the 8 actually at the beginning, the 8 manager behaviors that were really important, what was as thorough and rigorous as it gets. Yeah. And the number one was be a good coach. Number 2 was empower team and does not micromanage. Then there is a few more. 3, creates an inclusive team environment, showing concern for success and well-being. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, the last 2 were added 2-3 years ago because it had been 5 years since they had concluded the first survey and come up with 8 behaviors, and they thought, hey, the world is changing, let's do that work again, and let's update the behaviors of great managers, yeah? And they found they had to add 2, number 9 and 10. So number 9 is collaborate across Google, because they found that number 1 to 8 were enabling collaboration within a team, but not necessarily across teams. And then the 10th behavior they added is be a strong decision maker, because with collaboration could come the risk of consensus seeking forever, whereas business runs on the clock and needs and then there needs to be decision made at some given point in time, right? Well, I'm thinking that is goal for us coaches and in our communication with corporate, in fact, right? To have perhaps some companies where coaching culture is not yet their thing, reflect about how important it could be for them to embed coaching in the way managers are and the way they do things. Yeah. Now, one more thing I want to share all about Google is kind of their mantra with employees. And it's all about employees' responsibility to innovate at Google in a culture that has 3 pillars. Focus on the user, as any company which is successful focuses on their clients, right, or users. Freedom and innovate 10x, right? So the mantra is, if users cannot spell their search or their query on Google search, it is our problem. If they don't know how to form the query, it's our problem. If they don't know what words to use in their query, it's our problem. If they cannot speak the language, it's our problem too. If there's not enough content on the web, it's our problem. If the web is too slow, it's our problem. We look at the whole problem. And I guess for us coaches, that evokes the imperative of accountability on the side of the coachee, right? In partnership with the coach, to see themselves as a work in process rather than focus on solving a problem outside of their area of control, right? And so to me, that's a very powerful mantra that certainly over time inculcates accountability in employees. And those of you who work at Google would know that indeed accountability is really embedded in employees who've joined Google for more than a year or 2. Yeah. Now, with this, I want you to go to Microsoft, and Microsoft has a new CEO now for about 6-7 months actually. And the guy came and with his executive team defined a new mission for Google, for Microsoft. The mission is empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Now, what is our mission as coaches? Not much different, is it? With that mission comes leadership principles. 1, create clarity. 2, generate energy. 3, deliver success. Now, what are our principles in a coaching session? Aren't they including creating clarity on the issue the client comes with? Generate energy to overcome the obstacles, find the solutions, craft the way forward, and then deliver success. Interesting, hey? And then what is the culture that will thrive at Microsoft in service of the mission and nourished by those leadership principles? Growth mindset, customer obsessed, again, they are all customer obsessed, right? For good reasons. Diverse and inclusive, as we heard from Apple, as we heard from Google, and make a difference. Yeah, so very purposeful. Yeah, now I'll skip the rest, but you can read that later on. And again, you can access to more information on this by clicking on the link at the bottom of the slide. Now, I want to zoom in on the leadership principles. And that's also a slide generated by Microsoft, right? There you find again, create clarity, generate energy, deliver success. Yeah. Now, let's zoom in on create clarity just a couple of seconds, right? That spells synthesize the complex, ensure shared understanding, define a clear course of action. And again, what are we doing in the coaching session? We definitely do that, right? Now, generate energy, inspire optimism, creativity, and growth. Don't we do that? Create an environment where everyone does their best work. That we do too. Build a team that can be stronger tomorrow than it is today. And when we do team coaching, hey, of course, that's the ambition, yeah? And that's what we work at, yeah? Deliver success, drive innovation that people love, be boundaryless in seeking solutions, tenaciously pursue the right outcomes, yeah? So number 2 and 3, about boundaryless search for solutions and tenaciously pursuing the right outcomes is identifying, I guess, with your practice and my practice as coaches, right? So you see, and then one more thing, the motto at Microsoft now these days is done is better than perfect. And probably as coaches, as I found out, you found out too, that it's often perfectionism, which is the worst enemy of the leaders we coach, right? Because definitely good enough is better for business in general than perfect too late. Yeah. Now, Apple, we've done Google. Now, let's have a final stop at Netflix. And why? Because Netflix see what's next. So it's good for us to know about it, right? Here, I'd love to tell you a bit of the story very briefly of Netflix, right? It started kind of probably 15 years ago, more or less now, yeah? And so they became extraordinarily successful, and they added up more and more employees. And by the time they had reached 300 employees, they were at the step of what was clearly going to be an exponential growth. And then they started to be scared because they identified the reason for their success with the fact that they all knew each other, they were highly collaborative, they were very inclusive, they had lots of diversity, yeah? And so they thought long and hard about how can they make it as they become like 10x or 1,000x bigger. And as they reflected, they found out that, well, basically growth increases complexity, yeah? And then what happens when growth has happened and complexity has risen is companies resort to process to stop the chaos. Now, what happens next is process reduce the freedom of employees, yeah? By definition, and almost. And then what happens is the percentage of high-performance employees decreased because high-performance employees want some degree of freedom to do their things or do things their way, to innovate, to think differently, to try their things, yeah? And that is a main problem. So the way Netflix found to overcome that problem was to embed a culture that rested on two pillars: freedom and responsibility. So employees are free to work or not to work, to come to the office or not, to work on a Sunday night or not, as long as and only if they are fully responsible for their mission. Yeah? You will see at the bottom of the slide two links. I really invite you to click on so that you can get the full slide deck that Netflix developed on how they develop their culture to nourish and enable the success of their business going forward. And it worked extremely well. So much so that Sheryl Sandberg, who is Facebook COO for so many years, right, called this slide deck the most important document ever to come out of the Silicon Valley. Now, the document is 124 pages, and you may tell me, hey, JF, you're a very kind man, but I don't have time, right? Well, I think you will, because slides are just like those I showed to you, very simple, and you can flip through the whole thing in 15, 20 minutes. And I think you will really enjoy seeing that if you did not see that before. And it can be a great input for discussion with your clients, I think. Now, that freedom and responsibility culture is all about creating employees who will be the rare responsible persons, yeah? And there are 7 attributes for Netflix of that rare responsible person they want their employees to be. Number 1, self-motivating. 2, self-aware. 3, self-disciplined. 4, self-improving. 5, acts like a leader. 6, doesn't wait to be told what to do. And wait for the best. And last, picks up the trash lying on the floor, which is, I think, especially if nobody is watching, a true proof of great character. Now, my question to you, dear colleagues, is how would you compare your clients getting out of a session with you in terms of characteristics and these rare responsible person that Netflix culture aims to produce? You would probably agree with me, and we'll discuss later on, exactly the same. Yeah? And that's where I pause my investigation of the DNA of leadership in the Silicon Valley at those most admired tech companies in the world. Well, obviously, the conclusion is going to be here: to develop agile and collaborative leaders, most admired companies have integrated coaching in their leadership DNA and a coaching culture in their organization. Now, what are the benefits for employees? That's where I move to this slide, which actually is taken from Neuroscience, and particularly the work of David Rock. Perhaps you've read one of his books. With Neuroscience, you know, they put some tools, some things around our brain to check our chemical energy, electromagnetical energy, and electrical energy, yeah, up there. And they know that that energy that's generated by our brain can then transform into physical energy in our body. And that's at the core of motivation, right? Motivation is energy to act, basically. and it comes from the brain first, of course, right? Now, they found out that people's brain are highly stimulated when they gain status or self-esteem. People's brains, so energy, rise when people have reached a higher level of certainty about what they will do next. Their energy also rises in their brain when they gain or enjoy autonomy and relatedness, or a sense of relationship, of togetherness and fairness. And then, of course, you recognize here key features of the conversations we have with our clients, right? As they progress in their thinking, they gain self-esteem because they're doing great work, right? And they gain certainty because they clarify their thinking, yeah? They have all autonomy in their reflections with us, as we have no judgment, yeah? And our kind of partnership with them is really the best type of relationship we can have with others, right? It's anchored in respect and expectation of greatness from the other, yeah? And fairness also is something that we demonstrate, right? Because we have no judgment and we have unconditional respect for our client, yeah? So then, of course, coaching is going to motivate people because it creates in their brain all that energy that creates power for them to move forward, right? So that's one thing. A benefit from having a coaching culture, as we've seen at Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Netflix, is that it energizes their employees, right? And it gives them the ability to become greater. It's not all. And then also, it helps them become more collaborative leaders, very much like number 2, orchestra conductor, yeah? I'd like to ask you to reflect as I go along about how you would define the traits of a collaborative leader, and perhaps rank them. And of course, I've got my own ranking, and I'm sharing it with you for whatever it's worth, yeah? So at the bottom, kind of a strict necessity for collaboration and worthy of a gold medal is the employee or the leader brings out her best or his best, yeah, to the team. Now, what is better and worth of a silver medal is bring his best, her best, and also help others bring out their best. A far more difficult game that we role model in our coaching conversations, because really our job as a coach is to bring the best out of our client, yeah? Now, who does the gold medal go for? Obviously, bring out his best or her best, bring out others' best, and bring out the team's best. A far more difficult game, right? That's that game where the leader can see patterns in the team's interactions, or anomaly, or something toxic developing, and then he or she will bring that observation as a topic for discussion, and then the team will process that to move to the next level of collaboration, yeah? And then there is a platinum medal. We are beyond the Olympics here, and that platinum medal would go for the leader who, in addition, brings out the organization best through the team work and through collaboration across teams, right? Having at the heart of the thinking that is developed and the decisions that are made, the best interest of the whole organization and its future, all right? Now, something that, of course, coaching helps grow in employees and leaders coached and managers coached, right, is those behaviors, especially the silver medal, from the very nature of the interaction between a coach and a coachee. You will probably have noticed, as I had, that our clients go out of coaching session and, consciously or not, adopt some of the postures that we've taken with them, which are empowering postures with the employees that they manage. Yeah. And then, of course, when we coach teams, it's the same. The leaders we coach as a team will take away some approaches or postures that we role model and adopt the same with their team. Yeah. And, okay, so then I want to honor who I think was the most influential thought leader in the 20th century. Right, Peter Drucker, who may be less famous than more marketed thought leaders in leadership, but he was often the inspiration between all of them. So this gentleman here at a very senior age is saying what's the most important in teamwork. And Priya, could you let me know in case we cannot hear the sound of the video, right? So then I will.
All right.
Okay, thanks. Then I'll play the video anyway, and then if we can't hear the sound, I'll summarize it for you. Okay, let's go.
Okay. Yeah, so we can't hear anything, Jean.
All right. You noticed at the bottom of this slide, you have the YouTube link, so you can hear the video itself. Actually, you will see it's a 4-minute video of which I've extracted just 20 seconds, right? And I encourage you to watch a full video. I found it very nice, yeah? Because it's comparing high-performance teams in sport and in business. So now I'm summarizing what this extremely distinguished gentleman said at this very wise age of his. He said, there is no team leader. The task is the master. Every team member serves the other, right? And that was at least 30 years ago, probably more like 40 years ago. And I think this level of pre-science, right, of premonition in a way is admirable, right? Because that is what great companies are striving for, that creating leaders in every position, yeah? Having every employee emboldened and empowered and enabled to be a leader, right? There is no team leader. The task is the master. Every leader serves the others, yeah? So you see the power of thought leadership, right? Way ahead of the time, yeah? And then I wanted also to share with you characteristics of agility, because coaching produces agility. And so I'm here offering traits of an agile leader, and you could add more, of course, and I'd love to hear about that when we have our conversation in a few minutes. So for me, important traits of an agile leader are: the person is an eager learner, keen to experiment, comfortable not knowing, learning from mistakes, versatile in their thinking, and courageous decision maker. And you heard me say just before, and I shouldn't have really, coaching encourage all of this. Well, yes, of course, because we as coaches role model learning from our client, keen to experiment, comfortable not knowing, learning from mistakes, and being versatile in our thinking in partnership with our clients, right? And then with our client, we're going to find the way to make courageous decisions, yeah? And then that coaching is well spread in the most admired top performing companies is, I think, in part a tribute to the coaching culture, because it develops agility in people thinking and therefore agile leaders. Now, the last part of the sharing I wish to offer today is a few statistics. We're not going to read the details because numbers are boring, but I really wish that you see that so that you can perhaps use that with your clients when you want to have a talk about the impact of coaching, right? And here I am quoting an ICF survey report from 2016 from the global coaching survey we did back then. And we just did again, as surely you have seen on internet, right? We invited you to complete the global coaching survey this year and invite your clients to do the same, right? And this year, we've gotten more than 20,000 participants, if my memory is not flawed, which is way more than before and way more than any survey about coaching ever in history, right? So we can't wait to see the results, but then of course, the results are curated with extreme rigor and they will not be available before they are fully verified and analyzed and presented in a very helpful way for us all, right? So you will see the reports of this huge global coaching survey by Q3 next year, in fact, yeah? And there again, it's a huge, hugely helpful tool to circulate to your clients, in fact, yeah? So on this slide, key stats from the previous coaching survey, right? Coaching, in essence, improves team functioning by 57%. And that's the client saying, not us, right? Clients also say coaching increases engagement by 56%, productivity by 51%, really employee relations by 45%, and leadership development is accelerated by 36%. More statistics about coaching from another more recent survey from the ICF, dating last year actually. Coaching improves business outcome. And here you can see statistics for companies which have a strong coaching culture in yellow, stats for companies which have something else than a strong coaching culture, yeah, in blue. And well, there can be staggering differences. For example, imagine the difference to business when the customer satisfaction level is 82% as compared to when the customer satisfaction is 63%. Amazing difference, right? Linked to the top line and bottom line are direct, and then of course it costs a lot to you when you move, if you lose 1 or 2 percentage points, yeah? And same for shareholder value, same for the status as employer of choice, where the difference is even bigger, for labor productivity, for profitability, and for large-scale strategic change. And the how coaching is helpful in strategic change is the focus of much research from the ICF in these last few years. And here I want to share 2 slides, in fact, about what organizations do to support management. So in the left column, you will see the list of kind of all activities supporting successful change management, from classroom training down to learning labs at the bottom of the table. In green are the activities that are linked to coaching. For example, access to a manager or leader using coaching skills, one-on-one coaching with a coaching practitioner, team coaching, work group coaching with professional practitioner, yeah? And the percentage of respondents offering that activity in the company is in the right column. You can see it ranges from 38% for access to manager or leader using coaching skills, down to 16% for work group coaching. Now, more interestingly, the next slide is about the ranking of those very same activities that company deem most useful for change management, right? And those respondents coming from business, right, have rated at the top one-on-one coaching with professional coaching practitioners, and then work group coaching with professional coaching practitioner. Yeah. 78% of the respondent rating those two activities as very or extremely helpful. Yet they're not yet top choice of the company, right? But surely they have a great chance to move up there because the effectiveness of these modalities is really recognized. Access to manager leader using coaching skills has a very honorable score at 70% of rating as very or extremely helpful. And so does team coaching with a professional coaching coach practitioner at 67%. Yeah. Bottom of the class, classroom training and web-based training or e-learning. No surprise here. Yet, these modalities are the most used. You see 59% of respondents declared offering classroom training, 57 web-based training or e-learning. Yet the effectiveness is so low. Yeah, interesting. And I think that's a great document to share with clients when you present coaching, perhaps. And the source here is provided at the bottom of the slide. So you can learn a lot more by just clicking on the link and accessing to the report, Building a Coaching Culture for Change Management. I've also included in my presentation that movie, little video from ICF summarizing change management. So I'll just play it like 10 seconds, Priya. So you tell me if you hear anything, and if you don't, I'll stop because you guys can watch it later on by clicking on the link at the bottom. All right?
Sure, not a problem.
Let's go. And if it's working, Priya, just give me a thumbs up. Yeah?
Okay.
Building a Coaching Culture for Change Management, ICF video. All right, so hey, we've just saved 3 minutes more for our conversation. How about that, right? My invitation is to for you to watch the video when you receive the PDF. Yeah. Now I'll conclude with more stats, but I won't really comment on them about how employees value coaching in their organization because this is more and more measured. And the first statistic comes from PwC in their recent survey, Millennials at Work, Reshaping the Workplace. Coaching is at 28% the modalities that is the most preferred by millennials because PwC found out millennials want self-actualization above all else. That is a slide produced by PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Yeah. Now, next comes Accenture, another very reputable consulting company. Yeah. And then well, they invest big time in coaching. Actually, their ambition, very much like KPMG and PwC, is that their consultants become coaches in the way they interact with their clients, right? And so they give a lot of coaching training. On that slide, you've got some measurement that they do very well as consultants about how their people value coaching. So 87% of the people, the employees at Accenture, value the focus that they are putting on coaching. 70% said coaching helped them be more engaged at work. 80% said coaching helped them build stronger connections with people at work, and so on and so on. And a manager at Accenture is quoted by them as saying, with good coaching, I was able to perform my best, think out of the box and out of my comfort zone, right? Now, next slide from Accenture as well, with more numbers here, is saying 97% of people trained in coaching are committed to applying what they learned 3-4 months after training. And to Accenture, that is a remarkably high statistics because when they train people on something else, the percentage that is still committed to applying the learning 3-4 months after training is very low. Yeah, 88% of people trained agree that others value the coaching they take, and on and on. All right, so, and so it's very great to see these reputable companies filled with super intelligent people preach the gospel of coaching, really. And I had the chance, together with the global board of the ICF in February this year in Dublin, Ireland, to have a full afternoon with Accenture top team about partnering to advertise more the benefit of coaching to corporations, right? And so this is a plan we're moving ahead with swiftly. And as you may know, right, we are also starting a Thought Leadership Institute at ICF. We have formed the board this year, and they will be activated on 1st of January 2020 to really become the beacon of inspiration and thought leadership for coaching worldwide. And we also open a new branch of ICF, which we call Coaching in Organizations, in which we've got on the board people from Microsoft and other famous consulting companies, and some coaches who all together are going to find how we can expand the use of coaching in organizations worldwide, so that companies benefit more from this. And of course, that creates more jobs for ICF members, which is of course at the heart of a lot of what we do as ICF volunteer leaders and staff. Yeah. So with that, your minds are full of numbers and stuff. Yeah. And then I'll conclude with words of love, actually. And you may think, wow, is Jean-Francois becoming crazy or what? No, not at all. Still very business-like, actually. What I want to show you here is that outstanding book, The $1 Trillion Coach, about Bill Cambell. And it's written very importantly by, you can see that, Eric Schmidt, who is the gentleman you've heard in the video about Google talking about the best advice he ever received. That video is probably 20 years old, right? Now, the book is not even 1 year old. I bought it in New York in March. I think it was just published, fresh from the print, yeah? And so here we have the former chairman and CEO of Google spending his time writing a book on who? His coach. And that's Bill Cambell, whom is pictured there. And so the book starts, and I really want to read this to you as an opening to our conversation. Right? The book starts with the chapter number 1 called The Caddy and the CEO. And actually, I'll just read you a paragraph, right? It goes as opening of the book, right? On a warm April day in 2016, a large crowd gathered on the football field at Sacred Heart School in California to honor Bill Cambell, who had recently passed away to cancer at the age of 75. Bill had been a transcendent figure in the technology business since 1983, playing a critical role in the success of Apple, Google, Intuit, and numerous other companies. To say he was tremendously respected would be a gross understatement. Loved is more like it. Among the audience that day were dozens of technology leaders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin from Google, Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook, Tim Cook, Apple, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Mary Meeker, I can't remember where, John Doerr, on the boards of many of these companies and more. Such a concentration of industry pioneers and power is rarely seen, at least not in the Silicon Valley. And then the next page goes, Bill had been our coach, meeting with us individually every week or two to talk through the various challenges we had faced as we helped grow the company. And then it goes on, we called him coach, but we also called him friend. And in this, we were like pretty much everyone around us in that celebration for the funeral of Coach Bill Cambell. In fact, as we later found out, many of the people in the audience that day, an audience that numbered well over 1,000 people, considered Bill to be their best friend. And then the last thing I want to say about coaching as an act of unconditional love, embodied by this coach of anyone who was someone in the Silicon Valley, is that the last chapter of the book, chapter number 5, is called, as you may see.
So we can't see. We can't see what's written. If you can just read it out.
The power of love.
Oh.
Yeah, and it says the most important thing at the end of the day that Bill Cambell, as the top coach of Silicon Valley company, did was to bring unconditional love to the companies he served and the leaders he served in the Silicon Valley, because that kind of unconditional love, right, which is not naive, which is unconditional love for the inner resources and greatness of individuals, right, is a fantastic enabler of collaboration and of people bringing their best at work, right? And so I wanted to finish after so many statistics and stuff with that word about the importance of coaches as carrying unconditional love for their clients. And with this, my dear friends, I have to apologize for going way over 1 hour. I hope majority of you is still awake. That's when we gonna really, yeah?
Wonderful, wonderful, I have to say. And of course, we should open the floor for questions now, if there are any.
Right.
While people are putting in their questions, I have something to say, and I'm really, really touched with the kind of information you've shared with all of these, you know, high-tech companies, all these, because the values that they have of especially the empowerment and leading with difference is phenomenal. And I think the smallest of company, if as long as they have those values, they are able to grow. And, you know, all of this is actually very relevant for all of us coaches as well, who are in a way independent entrepreneurs trying to set up our own little businesses. And how we can be mindful of, you know, in the way we do our work also was really valuable. And thank you very much for that. Any questions any of you have, please put it out there so we can put them up for Jean.
Yeah. And the question may not have to be directly related to the theme, right? I'm the chairman of the global board for the ICF this year. Still 10 days to go. After that, I can finally take a holiday. Yeah, it's been hard, but great work. Don't hesitate to shoot any question on anything related to ICF and coaching. In fact, and if ever I can offer some elements of answer, I'll be very happy to do so at your service. Yeah.
Great.
And some of you are giving us your emails, right? And thanks for that. What I will do is I will send the slide deck to sorry, to Priya right away. So you can take it from there. Yeah.
Sure, no worries. You know, one question that's coming to me is that if you can help elaborate, for example, if the results of coaching have been so good in these companies, why is it you feel that it's not, you know, taking on prominence in the smaller firms as well? Is it, you know, there's a hesitation for what reason? Is it because of the kind of costs? So what is it that holds people back to take on, you know, coaching?
Yeah, well, actually, a difference between big companies and small companies is the impact of the top leaders, right? So with a small company, the impact of the top leader is big, right? Because there are not so many people, right? So if the guy is very directive, like the founder of Apple, right? Steve Jobs, at the beginning, and there's no room for coaching. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? Who would criticize the beginning of Apple, right? After all, right? Steve Jobs chose a leadership that was very brutal, micromanaging, uninspiring, but then he performed, right? So who are we to criticize, right?
Right. So this is something that comes up a lot when we are talking to clients here in India also. At least I have faced it. And so I'm saying it because no, I can't see any questions. So I'm going to just have this chat with you. They say that, oh, but our business is doing so well. Why do we need coaching? I am a great leader. Look at how well my company is doing. I'm one of the top, companies in the industry. So, this whole attitude that they have, how do you address it with them? How would you?
Yeah. So then I guess perhaps you can keep in mind something that our friend Marshall Goldsmith says often, right? What got you here may not get you there, right? So then you cannot be brutal like that because it would be disrespectful. Right, but then you could softly weave perhaps some questions in the conversation about where does the gentleman sees his company in 5 years from now? How are the competitors evolving? How is the market evolving? How is the level of uncertainty evolving? And so in that, probably he will tell you, wow, well, it's true, everybody wants to win, right? So our competitors are very active, and then you can ask, okay, are some likely to become game changers, right? And then, so you have a quite smart and soft conversation about the fact that what have made them successful so far may not be what will make them successful going forward, and therefore, it's probably very wise to develop the ability of their people to adapt to change, because if it's not wanted, it may be forced by external conditions in the near future, and that he cannot say no to. And what coaching is helping really people at is changing, evolving how they are and what they do. And so it's enhancing their adaptability, right? But then at the same time, we have to be reasonable. We probably would not want to spend much time pursuing a conversation with a leader that you think is totally stuck in his way, has an ego that is really unhealthy and will play very bad tricks to him later on. But so you try, and then if you think, well, the guy is just like too narcissistic, then just move to someone else,
Right. So I have a couple of questions that have come up. Thank you for that answer, Jean. One question that's come up is from Maithili. She says, in your experience, what coaching topic has been most common when it comes to tech giants? How is this different for other kinds of companies?
In my experience, what coaching topic has been most common when it comes to tech giants? Okay. Well, typically engaging remote teams, because they work, they collaborate across countries, across divisions, and so they do a lot of work with remote colleagues, in fact, and that's really difficult, right? So that's a very common theme in tech companies, right? Like the guys in Cupertino in Google and California, collaborating with the guys in Singapore or in Mumbai or in Madrid or wherever, and then it's more difficult, right? Because the features that Google advertise, and they all embed now or try to, are really stretched to the limit in remote collaboration. That's one, well, that would be a difference with many companies who are less global, or at least who foster less work with people who are on the other side of the planet. In fact, Then there's another question,
Right. Sorry, you're saying something?
Yeah, just reading the next question from...
So the next is Anu Sant. She says, what has been your opinion on the awareness of coaching and its benefits across industries versus mentoring and consulting, etc.? And how can one continue to promote our coaching practice in a beneficial way in comparison to these other services?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, first, the awareness of coaching is continuously rising. Yeah. At ICF, we recently calculated that over the last 10 years, ICF credentialed coaches have served more than 20 million clients. Right? Immense. I think the satisfaction level of people coached by ICF coaches is around 97 or 98. Don't quote me on this. I'm just working from my memory here, but it's enormous, right? And so those 20 million people, or most of them, are talking about their experience now and then with a lot of positivity. And probably you can see, as I can do, right, that more and more of our business is coming from referrals, right? Former clients who are happy. And that's very encouraging to those of us who are new to the field, right? Because the more you put in and the more you really stretch yourself to do great coaching, and in particular, as per the core competencies of ICF, the more chances you have that your clients become your ambassadors. Now, the benefits of mentoring and of consulting are very significant and of a different nature than coaching, right? So we would never pitch the benefits of one discipline against that of another, right? There is so much place for mentoring, so much place for consulting, and so much place for coaching, right? And the benefits are different, right? And there's a place for all of this. Interestingly, as I told you, most, if not all, big consulting companies now are having hugely strong coaching cultures because they want their consultants to become more coaching in the way, to become more of coaches in the way they interact with their clients, right? And how can one continue to promote our coaching practice in a beneficial way? So, of course, perhaps some of the things I've shared today you can use. There's something really great that ICF did this year for the first time. You can access it online by Googling or researching on Google hashtag experience coaching. It's a series of videos where clients who benefited from the services of ICF coaches talk about their experience. And the videos are beautiful. They're shot in New York, Dubai, and various places around the world. Very different clients, very different coaches, and very powerful. So there are several videos. They've been watched already more than 1.3 million times.
Wow.
It's gotten a lot of traction on social media, and it's just the beginning. So
wow.
Search hashtag experience coaching, or you the website address is www.experiencecoaching.com, all attached, right? And boom, you see those videos. There's one summary video that's very nice, and then there are one video per pair, client, and coach, and that's and the videos are not long, like 2-3 minutes, right? They've been formatted to fit with the span of attention nowadays of people on social media. Yeah. So
lovely. So there are a couple of other questions. I'm going to quickly try and squeeze them in. Sandhya has said, Jean would love to hear your thoughts on coaches actually advising or answering questions for clients. I have heard it twice now at ICF conferences and webinars as the future of coaching.
Yeah. Okay. We may, each time we give an answer or give an advice to client, we provide a service of lower value than when we do coaching, right? In type of conversation we have with our clients. However, perhaps in some cases there is no other way because the client has come to a place where they are clueless. They lack experience or knowledge, and then they're not going to invent what they don't know, right? So then we can give an advice or share an experience, right? But then it's of lower value as compared to the case where they could have found it by themselves, because it does not come from their brain, and their brain is different from our brain. So how will they take in the advice? How will they understand it in the first place? We have no clue, right? The power of coaching is that the solution is coming from the brain of the client, and then it stays there, and the client is motivated to implement it because it's her idea. And then when we give an advice, we devalue the outcome. But again, sometimes we are in that window of Johari where the client does not know, right, what he or she should know to be able to form a solution. So then there, coaching is not going to work. What we absolutely must do as ICF coaches, or any coaches for that matter, is if we answer a question or give an advice, we say each and every time, all right, then I'm going to remove my coach hat and put the hat of the guy who is sharing experience for whatever it's worth. And then we will discuss how could that advice be of value to you, what pros and cons you would see to that advice, the limitations of it, and that's when we will go back to coaching. Yeah?
Super. One last question from Anuradha once again. He says, in practical sense, what is your view on the expectation from coaches a lot in India still, to tell and advise to, that is a hybrid session of pure coaching? I think this is similar to the earlier question. I think you've answered it there already.
So this is typical. This is typical of coaches who have not yet developed the confidence in their craft, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. I've been one of them, right? It has taken me 2 years and many clients to get that level of trust in the process of coaching. And I have to confess very humbly that in my first year or two, I was so scared that I would not be delivering value to the client, that I would be only too happy to give advice, right? And then, of course, because I was mentored at the time, my mentors helped me reflect further and find the way to stay in the dance of coaching rather than just for reassurance, give advice or give some mentoring, right? And so it's a lot about the trust in the process, right? And so you will find the more experienced, more secure, more mature coaches don't tell an advice, right? It's provision of a lower service unless they are in that that space where the coachee does not know, and then they just say, all right, let's shift in to mentoring or experience sharing just for a while, then we'll revert to coaching, right? So
yeah. Lovely. Jean, I am so impressed with this session, and like have the rest of the participants. They've all been saying wonderful session. So compliments to you for putting all this together for us. This really actually is a lot of content that we can use in our respective, coaching, proposals that we make to clients. And I think it's going to be really valuable. So thank you so much for being so generous. And I look forward to receiving the slides, and we will of course share it with all the participants. I request everyone to please put in your name and email ID so that we can issue the CCEUs. Only if we can receive the details can we do that. Share it on the open chat, not privately to me. And please do participate in the poll. This is really valuable for us. I appreciate that you take the time to do so. Thank you so much, John. It's been such a pleasure. Namaste to you, and have a happy holidays and super fun and a great new year, a great 2020 to you and to all of you participants as well. Thank you very much.
My best wishes to you all also. Namaste and
Namaste.
bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.